And we are live. How lovely. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am fortunate enough to be with a relatively new friend, only of a couple of years, who is former CEO of Soccerex, which we will come into. Not quite sure what his current title is, but it's an exciting position he's gone and planted himself in, which I'll let him tell you about as well. So, if I can, albeit amusingly, Mac, you are still in my phone as Patrick. But everyone under the sun, and certainly within football, knows this man as Mac. So, Mac, over to you to give us a little hello bio, please, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you, mate.
Thank you.
Like I said, known each other a couple of years, whether it's because we're similar or both as terrible as each other, it feels like a lot longer. But yeah, so new title, I guess, kind of CEO as well, co-founder
Okay.
of the new venture. But as you mentioned, yeah, former CEO recently as July of Soccerex for the last 5, maybe 6 years.
Uh, was it not longer? Were you not there before under the old ownership?
I
It
was,
feels
yeah,
like
I
longer
was,
to me, so it must feel like longer
yeah.
to you.
Yeah, after nearly 6 years with zero holiday, probably feels closer to 10. But yeah, I was there just before COVID. Actually, my first week at Soccerex taking over an events business was the week that the UK went into lockdown. So it was pretty tough to navigate running an events business when you couldn't leave your house.
Yes, I really want to come back and visit that, but we'll do that during the course of this chat. Um, I think it's also important. I'm not sure. I believe she's on the school run, so I'm all right on this one for the minute. But your beloved partner, wife, and long suffering uh, life colleague. Let's go with that one.
Yeah,
Sue's been on that journey with you as well, hasn't she?
yeah, for nearly 22 years. Our journey, and then yeah, from not initially when I first came into Soccerex, but when the kind of reshape happened in 2023, and we were bought out and moved partly to Miami. She came in to help us do a bit of a brand, I wouldn't say overhaul, but kind of refreshing
Yeah.
of a brand that had been around for a long time. And as you know, she's got a pretty good design eye. Actually, the reason I'm in this hoodie and I haven't put a decent shirt on is because I was covering the school run or covering Kai while she was on the school run. So yeah, last minute stuff.
Nice. Well, I'm sure she will chastise you later for
It's what
looking
she
like,
does best.
yeah, looking like a mixed martial artist just about to go into training,
Exactly,
as
yeah.
opposed
But
to
if I'm not in a suit, this is what I normally look like, to be
well,
honest.
I was going to say, not looking anything like a CEO, co-founder, soccer exec on the business side. I think it's safe to say we're going to keep you on the business side, aren't we? We're not going to talk about your footballing career as a man lacing up boots, are we?
No, that seems like a different life ago anyway. But yeah, no, business side, please. It hurts the knees to think about anything else.
Oh, well, isn't that an interesting one? Nearly all of us are going on about our knees, and it's ironic because
Mm.
I think you're one of the youngest dads that I know. How old are you,
Ah,
mate?
okay, 46.
46, so 22 years. You were literally stealing girls from school gates and getting them pregnant, weren't you? 22 years
Oh,
ago.
I wouldn't quite go that far, but
Sue
no,
might want to
she
run with that one.
yeah, possibly. I mean, she's a few years younger than me as well. So yeah, I met her when I was 25 and she was 20.
Nice, nice. And how many kids have you got together?
3.
And the age ranges?
17, Kira. My 5-year-old daughter Jodie, who was a COVID blessing, I think they call them. And
Okay.
actually, that's genuinely true in her case. I think when a lot of people really struggled with, lockdowns and, the anxiety of what was going on around the world, I think that she gave us a real focus. She was born on the 1st of April, so a good
There's
good
an omen.
good old joke for me. Yeah, nice April Fool's joke for us. But yeah, it was tough in terms of the family stuff. Couldn't meet everybody, couldn't socialize how we wanted to. My mum had to wait to meet her, my sister had to wait to meet her, and stuff like that. But internally, at least in the household, she gave us all a real focus and helped push us on. And then another surprise was Kai, who came along 17, nearly 18 months ago.
Now, Kai, I know all about because we were around each
Yeah.
other at the time and you were bouncing in and out of the States, weren't you?
I was, yeah, yeah. It was. I
You,
was
you
spending
you
quite a lot of
like
time
to
in
walk
Miami.
that dagger, don't you, mate?
I think she's better as a one man team sometimes. I think maybe I'm more of a hindrance than a help sometimes. I
Mate, I know people that have worked with you that make that statement, so I'm not sure where you want to go with that one.
think. Yeah, it's probably true.
No, I think it's safe to say we're all very aware of the fact that Sue is an operator, and if that operator
Mm,
has to go into battle on her own, she can do so. But I
without
also know,
question.
in all fairness, I do know that you are a pretty dynamic team. I mean, you've kind of run Soccerex together, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. It's been a real. I used to like avoid the term family or whatever because that normally suggests dysfunctional. I think in business, whenever anyone been around for a long time, and when someone says, "Oh, welcome to the family," you walk in, and you're like, "Oh, there's the crazy uncle. Oh, there's the the auntie nobody talks to anymore," and it's always been a bit like that. But I think it was a labour of love for both of us, really. That and I think it's difficult until you see. And I made jokes about it actually at our event in Amsterdam that you were at in terms of Sue being back at her desk 3 days after giving birth, and that was no
It wasn't a joke.
exaggeration. For
It was only
no, it
funny
wasn't a
because it
joke.
was
For
true. That's why it was funny.
exactly, many a true word said in jest, right? And it was only really me inside the household that saw this. Whether she's crazy, whether she's incredible, maybe a combination of the two. But
She
watch
married
her.
you, Mac. I think we can definitely put
Let's go with
crazy in
let's
the
go with
statement.
crazy. Let's go
Job
with
description
crazy.
requirement,
Yeah,
pal.
yeah, it's at the top line. Yeah, yeah. But no, to watch her literally have like no time off and then go from event to event, and watch her do the mother thing at all hours, and you know what it's like when a newborn, right? That can be any hour,
Yeah.
hourly
Well,
sometimes,
it's
and
any hour
also,
and every hour without fail.
of course, it is. Yeah, and then watch her to sit at her desk after getting the babies to sleep, and don't forget Jodie's still very young as well, and watch her do that, and then go right, okay, laptop open, and then watch her sit at her desk, smashing out branding for a huge event like Soccerex until 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and then also accommodate me when I was stateside and the time difference as well. And a lot of people kind of overlook that, where I want stuff done instantly in the middle of the afternoon. It's not the middle of the afternoon for her. She's serving up dinner or changing a nappy or whatever.
And I'm just trying to remember because I have spent time in the States
Mm.
and been welcome there in the old days. But the the Miami time, that's Eastern, isn't it? So it's only 5 hours. It's not that.
5 hours,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's enough to make it inconvenient and uncomfortable, but it's not quite
Mm.
as bad as the Pacific and the. I always remember Asia always used to crucify me. Anything I
Yeah,
was doing when I was Hong Kong time, Hong Kong and Brazil, they were both. It was a big gap. It was tough.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
was
for
tough
sure.
when you were trying to get stuff done and you were trying to deadline people. And
Yeah,
coming back,
difficult.
listen, I've got to go back to the family one because it's been in my head for age. Well, for about 9 years since I had my little guy. Um,
Yeah,
I always used to refer to business as family, and I grew up in a family business, and then I always had that. To me, that investment that we put into a business, that
mm,
commitment, the only parallel is the commitment and investment you put into a family. And I
that's
think it's
true.
fair to say not everyone's family is as bonkers as ours. We've both got a bit of Irish in there, which means there's
Yeah,
there's dysfunctional with a capital D.
yeah,
And I mean all of my direct relatives are Irish. So
me
that
too.
that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
answers, I'm on your page with that whole mad uncle, weird auntie, and let's not talk about the cousins.
I think I'm now the weird uncle as well,
Well,
which it's funny how things work out.
it's no surprise, mate. Again, funny because it's true. I think that's where you're going with
Exactly.
that one. Um, and it's unfortunate. It's been maligned, but I think popular culture, and you know how we all have these polls that come up all the time about, oh, what's your most hated word? Let's and I can't even think of it because I spend so little time in that corporate environment. But there's
Mm.
certain key phrases that always make your teeth itch, and
Yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah,
the family one has been so abused. Excuse me, so abused that
it has.
people go, yeah, all right, whatever. But then it
Yeah.
turns out, well, hang on a minute, because you had it again, and I have to keep referring to Soccer X because it's my reference point. But
Mm.
you had Jerry, you had Johnny, you had a very tight little team at each
Yeah.
level of operation. Like,
Hmm.
and let's forget Sue because you were sleeping with the enemy there, so it was always it was always going to be okay, that one. But
Yeah,
when you went in the office, it was still a very similar dynamic, and it came across at your
true.
events, which
Yeah, and I
bodes
appreciate
well
you
for the
saying that.
future. Let's be
Yeah, I
fair.
think so.
Football Black Book
Yeah,
it's got a good architecture to it, and it's
yeah,
got
I think so.
it's got a healthy founder. I mean, obviously the other man or lady in the equation I've yet to meet, but I already have sympathy for them. So you can show them this in your defence when this goes
Certainly
live.
will. Yeah, nice. No, it was a big part of what we did, and certainly a big part of how we managed to achieve what we did. I think if you look at the large scale events, and certainly Miami's probably the showcase because it was the biggest, right, and therefore by definition the most difficult to organise. And I always called them my kind of team of Spartans because if you look at competitors in the marketplace, they employ 30, 40, 50 people to put on events like ours. We had 8 people
Yeah.
that we're all bought into the mentality of no days off. You can't outwork us. We're in it together. We'll succeed together. We'll cry together. We'll get drunk together in all crazy different types of environments and cities and experience stuff together. And that was all part of it. And as I always said to everybody was, forget where we're trying to get to. It's just about being on this journey together and enjoying it as best we can. And luckily, you mentioned Jerry. I've known Jerry since I was 11 years old. I've known him since I was at school. John, I've known for 12 years. Alvin is godfather to my 17-year-old. I've known him for 21 years. Mark, who did the programming, I've known for 14 years when I was at Thomson Reuters. So there was a lot of that trust as well, where if you want something to get done, sometimes it's difficult to say to someone how important it is that it gets done. Whereas my guys all knew me well, right? So they know that I'm pretty easygoing. I'm relatively jovial and easy to work with, but I do have another side to my character which probably isn't that enjoyable to be around. So I think they know that, and accepted a lot of the faults as well, which I think is important. And I'm aware of what they are too. So it's not
I don't
none
need
of
to,
those are going to
you
be
don't want
shocked
me
to
to
the
bring them
system.
up. They don't need to be broadcast. Is that what you're saying?
They're in the bio.
If they're not,
Yeah,
I'll make
fully
sure they
aware.
are. Don't worry. I'll make sure they go
Yeah,
in.
I don't doubt that.
So
Doubt that.
uh, that gives me pause for thought because, like I said at the beginning, we've only known each other a few years, and I do consider you a mate. So I'm kind of screwed
Sure.
now, aren't I? It looks like I've got another 10 to 30 years. If I suffer the way Jerry has, I could be in it another 30.
You've
Great.
got to be in it for the long
Anyway,
long
ladies and
haul, mate.
gentlemen,
It's
that was a
important.
great podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Good night. Um, and you bring me back to something else that I find interesting. The the deliverables I know you're very sensitive to and you measure and work to. How does
Mm,
that impact back? Because if you look at your kids, you've got from 17 to 18 months.
mhm. Well, actually, from 25 down, but the youngest three are with Sue. Yeah, but I've got two older ones who are now adults at 25 and nearly 22.
I hadn't forgotten, but as you didn't bring it up, I didn't want to throw you under the bus.
It
Was
just makes they sometimes they don't like me mentioning the fact that
I've I'm aware of that. They're at that. Isn't it funny? I think our kids, when I look back at my journey with my parents, particularly my
Mm,
dad, I was inordinately close to my dad, and
yeah,
grew up in a family business that he'd built from less than nothing because he
mm,
came over as an economic immigrant. So I do remember that there was a phase in my early 20s, more than any other time in my life, I was clearly a dick. And it didn't gel. And then as I got older,
mm,
unfortunately, we were never together both as parents. He passed before I got into parenthood. But I can definitely see that there is sort of like a teenage phase where you just know you can't communicate with them
yeah,
under normal. And I want to come back to that because I have methodologies and I have science and all sorts of shit that helps me know that I'm not going to fall completely into that trap. I don't expect
hmm
to not get bitten, but and I
yeah,
I would imagine that those first two kids have helped you because we've talked about Kira and you have a relatively healthy relationship there in terms of it's a 17-year-old girl of
yeah,
yours. In fact, I'll
yeah,
go one
and
stage
Sue's.
further and go you and Sue. So
Exactly, a
so
dangerous DNA combination. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and look, in all seriousness, that DNA, I already see a lot of DNA markers in my son from both his mother and myself. Now, the good news is we're separate, so I'm hoping I can stamp out her DNA, but we'll see what goes on.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Well, I listen, I'm fooling myself if that statement's got any validity. I know it hasn't,
None at
but
all.
it's okay because you see the markers.
Hmm.
And so you're self-aware enough within your business environment, but where do you map that within the home life? Because you've already said, Jesus, you had one of your kids in COVID, like literally at the dawn
Hmm.
of COVID, and then you had Kai delivered whilst you were on the biggest 18, because in that 18 months since Kai's been born, you've done your biggest year, and then you
Yeah,
did your busiest year. Your biggest year was the first
yeah,
year of Miami, but then you did your
hmm,
busiest year. Was it 4 events in 1 year?
yeah. Just over 12 months.
Yeah, with a team of 8, not a team of 40. Well worth mentioning.
Yeah, yeah. Let's slip that in.
Let's keep
Yeah,
that
for
one
sure. I
in. Let's
think
not slip it in. Let's get it
dynamic
up there.
wise, it's yeah. No, I agree. I mean, dynamic wise, it's quite funny because again, I've seen it all from being a young dad to being a not an old dad, but someone that's in my mid 40s now with Kai. And it's funny because
Mac, I've got
there are
shoes older than you, so let's not worry
no,
about.
no, I know. I didn't want to bring that up. But if you look at the dynamic between Kira at 17 and our relationship, and actually, I see a lot of me and her. She's quite funny. She's very approachable. We've got similar interests. She's studying criminology, and I've always found, psychology and that side of things really fascinating. And we've got a similar taste in, serial killer documentaries and stuff, which is really cool. But she also has a lot of her mum in her where she's very organized, very studious, very academic. I was never academic, as you know. And so you see those differences, but I think they're quite complementary. They're not always in people or with two people, and I've certainly experienced that too. But also I also realised that she's 17 and she thinks I'm a bit of a dickhead. So, and that's fine too, because I'm the old fella in the house paying the bills, and I'm not 17, and I'm not cool, and I'm not trendy, and that's completely fine. Because if you go down one, my 5-year-old thinks I'm an absolute superhero.
Yeah,
So that gets offset quite nicely, and Kai's a real mummy's boy, so that's a difficult one to get over at the minute.
but they can't both be wrong. That's the amusing
No,
thing. They can't both be
no,
wrong. And I have this real thing about superstar dads and the fact that,
mm,
this morning my little guy completely lost his shit with, no, last night completely lost his shit with me. I beg your pardon. And he had a lot to process.
mm,
But at the same time, then either last night or this morning, we were discussing what we were going to do at the weekend, because we have alternate weekends. So it's my weekend with him this weekend. And from his heart, he just went, well, I want to spend time with you this weekend. I don't want to be going, because I always try and make sure he's an only child. So I try and make sure he's around other kids. I try and make sure that
yeah,
he's got that healthy social dynamic. He's not
yeah,
spoiled. He's not narcissistic, which I've seen in kids,
yeah,
which bothers me when you start looking at 8,
yeah,
9,
me too.
10-year-old kids that he's around. And you can just
Hmm.
see there's an element of selfishness in there.
Yeah,
Narcissism is the new word, but the reality is they're just selfish little shits. Um,
100%.
so I sort of sacrifice my time on the basis of when we are together, he'll enjoy it more and he'll be a more rounded
Mm,
kid. But this brings me back to a point I wanted to slot in, because let's look at your background, and you talk about yourself in a way that's not entirely fair, because you grew up in the East End, correct?
I did, yeah.
And that, and I grew up in Essex at a time when Essex was getting a lot of the East End overflow, and there was a criminality culture. There was a culture where it was expected that you would be bringing home stuff from work, or stuff would be falling off the back of a lorry. And I'm
Absolutely.
trying to think, there's a comedian that's made an entire bloody tour out of it, and he loved it. And again, he's East End. He tries to talk East End, and he talks about choring stuff and how.
Oh, Mickey Flanagan.
Thank you. So
Yeah,
Mickey
yeah.
Flanagan,
He's a real East End boy as well. Bethnal
yeah,
Green,
no,
yeah,
he's proper. He
yeah,
is genuine. It's not a made up
yeah, yeah,
persona. Um, but there was that culture, either geographically or historically. So for me, it was more of a time zone. For you, it was more of a geography thing. It's waned now, but it's not non-existent. I mean, if you went back to your old stomping ground, I'm going to take a wild guess that if you went into many of the families, someone in there will have a banged up member of family, or they'll have a member of family that's considered the villain, for want of a better word. And it's not always pantomime villain. So I don't want to glamorize this, but it's just then you go through to the world that Kira's grown up in, and you live in a very, very pleasant part of the world. You can see, hear, and smell the sea. It's a proper pucker postcode, nice schools. You just don't have the environment that you grew up in. Your kids are being raised in a
No.
wildly different world. And not only that, you don't blow it up, but let's have it right. I've put it in the title of the podcast. You're a bit of a face within football. You're certainly a very, very well-known entity within the business of football, and you make things happen. And if you don't make them happen, I've watched you getting back scratching sessions going where everyone's left as if they've had a massage.
Appreciate that.
Well, it's
Yeah,
true. It's true.
it's really funny actually.
It's part of your je ne sais quoi. It's part of your persona that I
Yeah, and I
think makes you
appreciate that.
so dynamic and so successful.
Yeah, it's funny actually because I was talking to somebody about just that yesterday, in terms of the differences of where and how I grew up compared to where the kids are, and it's one of the first quests you do, right? You try and do better and give your kids a good life and all those kind of things, and then you think, well, there's a fine line between that and making them spoil. And we're a very humble household. I think we don't have any extravagances. We're not big sports car fans. We don't drink expensive wines or the odd treat or whatever, but nothing crazy. I think our biggest extravagance is probably takeaways, and I've been told I've been putting on too much weight, so I need to stop doing those as well. So, which is fair. But I think looking at I mean, I grew up on a street that was effectively coined as Murder Mile by a newspaper, where we had shootings every week for I think about a year. There was a shooting every week within the postcode that I lived in, E8 postcode, which was in Hackney,
Yeah.
in the heart of East London, east/north border. And like you said, it was very. Someone asked me yesterday, is it more violent now than it was then? And I'm not sure it is. I think it's publicised more, but it was very, very common for people to be stabbed or to be shot or to be involved, as you say, someone was the criminal, or there were entire families of criminals, next door neighbours. It wasn't unusual. And my dad was a fireman, but some of our neighbours went to jail, or they were drug dealers, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, and so you had civil servants living alongside criminals, or people that worked in a factory, and then in the evenings there were criminals, or part-time drug dealers or burglars or whatever. So there was always when it was a hint of criminality, it was always very evident
Yeah.
that was a large part of where I lived. And then went to school near Brixton, so my parents thought, we'll get him out of Hackney, and we'll send him
Oh
on
yeah,
an
let's
hour
go
and a
and put
half.
him over with the Yardies. That's a much better idea.
Yeah, exactly. So I learned about different kind of criminality with a different kind of. That's why my accent isn't the stereotypical East London or South London accent. It's a mishmash of the two, because I grew up in Hackney, but I went to school in South London, so it's a little bit different. And my dad had an Irish accent until he had elocution lessons to get rid of it. So I think that true story. And he won't like me saying that publicly either. Now he sounds like Ross Kemp. But
I would have gone back. I would have gone full Kerry if I sounded like Ross Kemp. I'm sorry.
it sounds good on him, to be honest. And I think so. There was always that element of criminality. I mean, I've been a victim of, as you know, a few violent incidents down the years that have led to serious ramifications health wise and whatnot. And I didn't see that as being a victim. I just saw that at the time as
That's part of
it
the journey.
happens round here. It happens round here.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my head caved in. I was practically put in a coma, and I had to have my entire face rebuilt. As you know, it wasn't. I didn't sit around wallowing about that for months. I was back at school with black eyes and bandages everywhere, because it was like, well,
That's
it's
what.
just who we were, and you're not taught that you can be better than that unless it's by your parents or people that care about you.
But I think that comes back to, just because you made a bit of a sweeping statement about whether or not the world is more, whether London is more dangerous now. What I would
Mm,
say is the danger is more widespread. So, and
mm,
again, you picked up on it. So your mum and dad thought we better send him to a decent school. So they
mm-hmm.
sent you to is it SE there? It is SE, isn't it, Brixton?
SE1, yeah. I went to London Nautical School for Boys, so I
So
went to a naval school. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, you're borderline to Greenwich there, which is still
Mm-hmm.
terribly posh and got nice schools. So your
Mm-hmm.
parents were trying to do the best they could. The problem was they
Correct.
didn't realise that they had to get you even further out of the postcode zone to get you
You're
into
right.
what they were aspiring to get you into. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's got even worse now. I think, frankly, I mean, my best mate, and he, ironically enough, he was on the first podcast. Um, he's worked 40 plus years in and around Chelsea. He does very, very high end building refurbs and decorations
Mm.
in pucker gorgeous property of people you would never see, the ultra
Yeah.
elite. And he no longer wears a watch to work. And his phone is
No, no, I
smothered.
get that.
And this is I mean, him and I have done track days, we've been out drinking, we've got 40 years of stories and would probably stand back to back in most environments.
Mm.
But he is mindful now that even in and around Chelsea and Knightsbridge, the sort of the ultra rich zones, it's a lot like any other major capital city anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You've got to be more street smart and have your wits about you. Um, but I think again, going back to you and your family, you've gone far enough out that that overspill doesn't come your way. I mean, listen, London by Sea is not a million miles away from you, and
No.
that has its own culture. It's got a drug culture.
Camden by the seaside. Yeah. Yeah.
It's got its action, but
Yeah.
again, it has not done that drifting out thing. And
No.
I'm going somewhere with this. Bear with me. I know we seem to have gone on a long journey of Tommy talking, but I see that with our parenting as well. I
Mm.
see my my view of it is that we have more battles to fight as dads now than
Mm.
our dads did. Our
Agreed.
dad's battle was make sure you've got to work, make sure the little fucker's had a clip round the back of the head when he needed it because mum said he needed it.
Yeah.
Mum's
Yeah.
made sure that I've got clothes for tomorrow, I've got clean shoes and socks, I've got my tea on the table, and the kids are going to school with the right food in their bag and the right books in their bag. And that
Mm-hmm.
that whole dynamic shifted. Take you and Sue. The last business you basically co-ran the business at the sharp end. You had a team around you, but actually your right hand man was your wife.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
And I don't. I mean, again, the oldest saying in the world is what you find a great man, you'll find a just equally great woman behind him.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
often. Um, I'm not saying it's a given. It's not. That's not the rule of thumb, but it's a good
Mm-hmm.
saying to work to.
Yeah. I think so.
So the story with the kids, I'm just curious now. How much do you lean into what you knew raising Kira compared to what you lean into now 16 and a half years later?
Um, I don't think too much, right? I think reason being is I think you have to treat all of them individually. So I think there's that, right? And they're going to be a little bit different. There are similarities, but lots of differences too. And I think I've changed a lot in that time. So because I've changed a lot in that time, maybe I approach things differently just because of how I, process things or, as you know, I'm quite an emotive character and hearts on the sleeve. And sometimes I can throw my toys out of the pram. I try not to do that as often as I used to. And I'm a bit more measured in my approach. Again, being the public face of a global business for a while, you have to learn how to say certain things and when not to say certain things. And people always want to get you to say stupid things, obviously. So maybe that helped. The business side rubbed off on the
Right.
home life and made me a bit more measured that way. And I think I'm a bit more tired anyway. Naturally, there's a bit more. There are more miles on the clock, so you might do things a little bit slower. I think luckily I spend more time with Jodie and Kai because I purposely work from home. Even running Soccerex, we closed the office in London Bridge. It saved the business a fortune, but also it was a very basic time and motion study where I was spending 30 odd hours on a train every week. But also, we could employ people all over the world. We could grow quicker.
Yeah.
I was never having my time wasted by people phoning in sick or phoning me telling me they were going to be late or any of that stuff. People tended to work earlier, work later, take less breaks, take less lunch breaks, all of that stuff, because you offer them the flexibility of doing the school run, of doing the doctor's appointments, or the life stuff that gets in the way
Yeah.
of work or whatever. So I think there's a bit of that where naturally I'm around more. Whereas when Kira was younger, I was trying to make my mark and traveling a lot and on a daily basis commuting and stuff. Which I think makes a difference.
But when Kira was younger, you were what age?
I was born
20,
when
26,
Kira
27?
was 28 when Kira was born.
Right. And what were you doing when you were 28? Because you and I have had a similar journey in terms of we've done the
Yeah,
very sharp end of what I call mirror sales. If they could mist over a mirror, you were selling them something.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I started in advertising and media and publishing. And when Kira was born, I was actually the commercial director of Sports Pro. So I'd been at Henley Media for a couple of years as like director of partnerships. It was kind of like a head of sales role, really.
Yeah.
And then Henley Media bought Sports Pro very early on when it was called F1 magazine.
Okay.
And Nigel Barklam, the chairman there, fantastic guy who I've still got a great relationship with, gave me wonderful opportunities. And he said, look, we'd been smashing huge numbers in terms of publishing and events for a few years. And he said, I've just bought this thing. It's a sport thing. You like sport, do something with it. And that was it, really. And I sat down with David Cushnan and James Emmett, who run Leaders now on the content side,
Right.
and doing wonderful things. Two brilliant writers and two of the funniest people I've worked with, and a guy called Adam Fraser, who went on to be CEO of Larius, the Sport for Good Foundation. So he'd done incredible things as well. Big Aston Villa fan, funny enough, big shout out to Adam. And those guys were just working tirelessly to build content for a magazine of sorts. So we decided to make it a sports finance magazine to rival kind of sport business, and
Okay.
we just bootstrapped the hell out of it. And I was bunking into events like Leaders and Soccerex. Funny enough, I bunked into Soccerex in 2010 in Manchester with a bag of magazines under my arm and guerrilla marketed it, and then I think it was valued last year at $22 million. So not bad.
That's not bad from bunking in with a bag full of magazines just to sort of go,
Exactly.
sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now they do events all over the world. Magazine's probably number one in the world for what it does. And funny enough, Nick Meacham, who's the CEO there,
Right.
I originally had as an intern on my team. So
Oh,
we
he'll,
put a
he'll
great thing in.
appreciate this mention.
Yeah, well, we put a really good team in place, and Nick worked through the ranks, became sales manager, then commercial director. And then when I stood down to move to the coast, funny enough, because we decided to have a bit of a break from the rat race, Nigel asked me, what I thought about who should take over, and I suggested Nick. And to be fair to him, he's built on what was left, and they're doing amazing things now.
Cool. So that journey from leaving the smoke, as it used to be called, God knows what it's
Yeah,
called now.
yeah, yeah,
Probably the dust and cranes. That's what it should be called now.
yeah, yeah,
Still
exactly.
blows me away. I mean, I knew South London like the back of my hand. I could see
Mm,
any TV show and I'd know where they were.
yeah, yeah.
Not a chance now. Not
No,
unless it's
very
from the
different.
70s or 80s will I have a clue.
Yeah, you're watching UK Gold all day to feel great
Just
about things.
just just for the reminiscence of, oh yeah, Dad did a job down that road. Oh yeah, I remember doing a delivery down that road.
Yeah, yeah,
It's but you had a conscious exit then from that
mm,
city life. And that
yeah,
came about at the same time for your career journey. I'm just trying.
yeah. I think so.
I'm just trying to track the. I mean, listen. Some of my best decisions have been the
Mm,
most unknowingly unconscious, screwed up.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
It's funny how it came around. So I'd spent a few years at Henley, nearly 8 years actually. 3 years running Sports Pro, and I'm as you know, I'm an all or nothing kind of guy, right? And I put everything into this business and lived it. And actually, it was when Blackberries first came around. So suddenly, I was working all the time. You know, I'm on the tube and I'm emailing people on my BlackBerry device, which was the most incredible thing in the world for
Oh,
me
it was when
to
it
be able.
came out, it was wonderful. Now I think it's the beginning of a
Oh,
decline. It was like, we just don't
I'd
need to
agree with
do
that.
that many emails.
No, I agree. And actually, I'm trying to learn more and do more about time management in terms of personal development as well as time with the kids and stuff, and learning from lots of very successful people who were successful before you had to work 20 hours a day, right? Because
Yeah.
you couldn't. So I think that's quite important. Time it helped elevate what I was doing and maximize my output, which generated really really good results. And it's funny because I just got to the stage where I thought I'm really I've hit a bit of a wall. You know, I was a bit bored of the commute. I hate to get on the tube every day. You know, it was that grind of the more money we earned, the further east we moved.
Yeah.
And I got to Wanstead in East London, and I didn't really want to move any further east into Essex. And then the commute becomes a bit of an issue,
Yeah.
and we're kind of on the edge of the A12, so we drive in sometimes, or because I met Sue at work, we've always kind of worked together. Um, and then I had a tantrum in the boardroom on the phone to Sue and just said, "Look, why don't you look for what we could get for our money where my sister lives? Because my sister moved to the South Coast years ago to study and then got married and
Didn't
stayed and
leave.
became a teacher.
Yeah.
Didn't leave. So then my mum moved here, and then my brother-in-law's parents moved here. So there became a kind of East London network that was building down here. So
And
my
eventually
grandparents
you
were
got
here.
the memo, did you?
We
There
got the
wasn't
memo,
many
and we were
left of the
coming. We were
family, was there?
No, not well. My dad's side is still there, but my mum's side, it was like my aunt, my uncle. A few people moved. It was like actually there was a lot of property to be had for your money. 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Hell yeah.
Um, and then I said to Sue, have a look at what we can get for our money, and she literally called me back and said, "We're doing that." And
Yeah.
I went, and obviously, Sue's background and heritage is Jamaican, and I said, there's not a huge Jamaican population
You
down
are
on the
going to
coast, and
stand out a bit more, love.
yeah, and she's the least hung up person about race I've ever met. So she just went, "I don't care about that. Let's do it. It's better for the little one." And I think it was within like 4 months we were here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were here. It was actually what tipped me over the edge is I'd opened a little office in Wanstead. I've decided to kind of step away from Sports Pro and Henley, but they retained me as a consultant because I had all the major accounts.
Right.
So the big spending accounts were all contacts and friends of mine. So it was, we don't want you to leave. We understand you want a break, so stay attached to us, keep working for us, just do it wherever. And I thought, well, I'll open a little office in Wanstead, just somewhere where I could take a little walk down Wanstead Village in the morning, get a coffee, go into the office, employ a couple of
You
people.
make it
And after
sound a
three
lot
weeks,
more glamorous than what I can picture it.
well, what Wanstead Village compared to Mare Street in Hackney is a little bit nicer.
Okay.
No offense to anybody that still lives on Mare Street, because I still love you and still love where I came
We're
from.
just making comparisons, which is never a good
We're just
thing
making we're
anyway.
just making postcode based comparisons, which is probably the worst thing to do. And then I went to the office one morning after I'd been there about 3 weeks, and there'd been a gas explosion in the building where my office was, and it had actually ripped down the side of the building and thrown the chair that I usually sit on through the window. Um, and I thought, Jesus Christ, this is quite new. Like, it can't happen long ago. The fire brigade were on site, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And it was only because I'd been on the nursery run that morning, I wouldn't
You
normally
wasn't
be,
in the chair.
that I wasn't sitting in the chair. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, that's it. I'm gone. I'm out of here now. So I lost everything. I lost laptops and all my work and whatnot, but it was time for a change.
I'm just wondering whether it wasn't Sue making a plan to move to the coast on her own.
Yeah, possible. Yeah.
Machiavellian, she is not. Let's be fair.
No, that's true. That's true.
That's fair enough. Um, you you've started Football Black Book. It's not a huge departure. You've already covered the fact that you were already doing sports business and you had the ear and the attention and the eye and the checkbook of many people within sports.
Sure.
So you you've done a reiteration. Would that be fair to say as you go into the next stage of your fatherhood and your
Mm,
kid is still nursery age, you've
hmm.
started another business. You must walk me through the logic of this one, mate, because I'm
It's
scratching my ears with this one.
it's I think it's a pretty simple one. I think when I stepped down from Soccerex, the idea was to have a break over the summer, and then work out what came next. I was offered lots of things to look at, employment, consultancy, varying terms, and some great people and some great organisations. But I'm a little bit stuck in my ways in terms of the way that I like to work. I know what gets the best out of me. I also don't really want to go back to, going to somebody else's office 5 days a week and doing all of that kind of stuff. And, I've got a great relationship with my kids and love the fact that I don't have to organise meetings before the school run in the morning, and I can, even this afternoon's chat with you was organised around the school run and stuff like that.
We've got
That
Csuite
means a
to
lot.
thank for that, though.
Yeah, no, we have, and that's important to me. And I think I spoke to a lot of people that I respect in the industry, and they were all saying, do your own thing, because these were ideas that I had kind of 4 or 5 years ago.
We talked
So
about
it's
some
not
of them.
a We did, yeah. So it's not a new thing. I think the black book and the idea is the consultancy side is one thing, and there's some people that I'm helping to raise capital or to launch brands or whatever, and there are a few of those and some clubs as well, as you see on the websites. But the real kind of baby within the black book is the 1 day sector specific events within football. So I've seen, obviously, I've organised large scale events around the world for years, and I always used to think about potential wastage for a client and say, right, okay, if I sell a performance product, for example, and I go to a large scale event that covers 20 different topics, how relevant are the 2,000 people that are in the room going to be to me?
Yeah.
Um, and the idea was, well, actually, if we make them 1 day events, we don't have to pull people away from their desks for 3 or 4 days. They haven't got to fly particularly far. We then make the day very targeted, very specific to within a certain role within football. Like in January, we've got an event at Millwall at the Den called Peak Performance, which looks at all of the things relevant to elite performing athletes. So everything from data and analytics to performance to medical and recuperation and the mental side of the sport. Actually, you're going to be involved in that panel in terms of moderating the kind of mental health and mental performance side of professional football on and off the pitch, because both sides are just as important as the other. So I think that is the future of football business events, at least from what I've seen from the market, and the initial reception suggests that might be the case. And then the other side of FBB is football business TV. So that is the first dedicated channel to the business side of the game, and that's all been just about what I've seen in the market, what I've learned, what I've studied about football fans. The industry is one thing, and we've got credibility there, thankfully, from myself and other team members and what we've done for the last few years. But football fans are different now. They understand stadium naming rights or performance or player contracts and the business side of the game. And there's an appetite for them to know a bit more. So I think being first to market there is important. And we've already produced a few shows. I think we hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers in like 6 days, and
Nice.
half a million views across Instagram and YouTube in the first 8 days, which has been great. And we've filmed some stuff at Millwall. We've done Players Lounge with Brad Friedel. We've done some stuff with Gary Monk, the former Premier League manager, hosted by Seb Bassong, one of our partners, the ex Spurs and Newcastle player. And Seb's a brilliant guy to work with, as well as being an ex pro footballer, just full of fun. And actually, he's going to be on that panel that you're going to host. And he's a big on mental performance and very focused guy, just awesome to work with. And that channel has kind of 7 dedicated shows to it. The CEO show, which is obvious. Next Gen, which is about academies and youth systems. Fan engagement, which is obvious again. A women's dedicated show, which isn't just about women's football, but it's also about leading figures within the game that are female, so they can work on male or female from a sporting perspective. And yeah, so the idea is, again, being first to market with that. And I've got a 3-year plan to hopefully sell that to a major broadcaster and maybe move a bit further down the coast and get a bit fatter and a bit brown.
You'll need a bigger boat. You'll need a bigger boat, mate. That's what will happen.
Like Jaws.
You'll just need a bigger boat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. I have a view on, and again, we've touched on it in the past when we've looked at business models. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't become your own broadcast channel, as opposed to imagining
Possible.
selling it. If you look at and again, Netflix, you very kindly mentioned those footballers and then told me where they were because, as you well know, my mind is a vast empty space when it comes to football. But if you look at Drive to Survive, now that was a Netflix endeavor that I have
Mm,
no doubt Liberty Media had a very, very strong push, let alone
yeah.
Paul. They had a very strong push on. But it has transformed the face of Formula One.
Hmm.
And it's also transformed naming and television rights because
Yeah.
I believe it's taken away some of the power of the draw of Sky,
Hmm.
who have got a stranglehold on that. And I'm mentioning it because it irks me. I think it's
Mm,
wrong. If you look at football, there has been a wider distribution of football for people that have got, as you say, this fan engagement, this fan development, where fans
mm,
are becoming more articulate, they're becoming better informed, they're having a wider perspective on the game and not just going, well, my team's blue and therefore everything in my
yeah,
life's got
yeah,
to be blue. It's far
exactly.
more evolved than that now. Um, and I think maybe with your business, there will be an opportunity there for you to actually have a bigger horizon than simply selling to what's deemed by today's standards a major player. It, if you get it right, if all of the stars align for you, you could be your own major player.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. My short term plan is for personal reasons only.
Well, 3 years from now, you'll
Uh,
still only be a kid,
yeah,
and
I've got
Kyle will only
a
be
very
starting primary. So, I mean, come on, what else are you going to do?
well long lunches is the plan. No, I think
I don't think your waistline can afford a long lunch, pal.
touche. I Yeah, no, I think for me, I've got a 3 year plan looking at rapid accelerated growth, which is what I've made a career out of. But being conscious that I was 45 when Kai was born, and I'll be 60 when he's 15. I know how much I missed in terms of the older ones, and being away working and lots of the experiences that I had. And I've been really fortunate to have been around the world and worked with some amazing people, and you
Cheers.
as well.
That's the touche back, is it? That's you've riposte.
No, I've been really blessed. I've met people that I considered heroes as a kid, and actually a lot of them have dispelled. Yeah, you too. A lot of them have dispelled the "don't meet your heroes" thing, because actually a lot of them are really good people. Um, but if I look at my camera roll, and I say this to Sue quite a lot, if I look at me in Miami or in Cairo, in Amsterdam, in Saudi, in Qatar, my kids aren't in any of those pictures. Sue's not in any of those pictures. It's me, and it's me and John, or it's me and Jerry, and that's great too. Um, but I'd like to take a few more pictures with the kids in some great places.
Yeah, John and Jerry are no Sue. Let's have that absolutely out there right now.
Absolutely not. And I love the pair of them, but absolutely not.
But that, see, now that brings on an interesting point, and you amuse me because your child will be 15 and you'll be 60. I'm
Mm.
63 and my guy's 9.
Yeah, yeah.
So be careful how you put yourself
You,
because there's no reason
you know
why.
why? You know why? It's because of the miles on the clock. It's because of the health issues that I've had. It's because of the fact that I've already gone through the whole cycle of, a child into adulthood and stuff like that, and about to do that for a third time, and then Jodie and Kai last, obviously. I think that some of that is just about time, and because if you look at the history of my family, we don't tend to live to be very old. And I'd like to buck that trend, but
Well,
I'm
I
not
was just
overly
going to say,
confident.
I'll argue tooth and nail on this one for loads of reasons. So,
Mm,
your first two, your eldest two, it's unlikely you were on the scene much, which reflects
no.
it, but that reflects into where the relationship went with their mother. It
Hmm.
reflects into where the kids are in their relationship with you, and you can't change it. And
No.
I bang on about, and you've picked up very kindly on the fact about the mental health and working with you in January, but I bang on about mental health because I've had my own challenges, and they've
Hmm.
manifested themselves in various ways that
Yeah.
I've never publicized, but they're all traditional roots of mental health unwellness.
Hmm.
And I've processed them through self-learning, through an open mind to, if someone turned up tomorrow and went, those candles you've been burning, what I want you to do is I want you to eat one a day, but when you do, I'll have a go at eating a candle for a day or two. I am that
Yeah, yeah.
open-minded, um, as long as it's the right flavor. But my point is, you you have an awareness of what you want to do. But
Mm,
I question, and particularly now at my stage in life, I question anything that is a flip. So I don't want to go from black to white. I'm happy to drop into a shade of purple on the way there. I hate
yeah,
grey. Grey
yeah.
just burns me, and it's almost like a fucking default color for every man under 35. It's like I rarely see a bloke in color. Mate, honestly, it's like
It's one of my favourite colours. Battleship grey is one of my. I went to a nautical school. What can I do?
I look in your defence. I've seen you in colour. One, you own some, and two, you can carry it off. So let's not
Thank
open
you.
that can of worms. But seriously, I question your emphatic view on this. I know you haven't
Mm,
made a decision yet, but if you think about the dynamics within the home, Dad's good. Dad's a superhero to Jodie because Dad does shit. It's not because
mm,
Dad's at home all day long. And I had this with a
that's true.
conversation with Dad last week, and he was getting a bit hung up on some guilt issues around not being with his child as much as he wanted. And this is a dad that does
That's
the
easy.
school drop off, school pickup.
Mm,
This is a dad that works from home and he's got a healthy timetable that accommodates being around a 9, 8, 9, 10-year-old child.
mm.
But the point was, and he hadn't cottoned on to it, that kid needs to see dad working,
Oh, for sure.
because we have
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have this generation of 20 somethings that don't know their arse from their elbow. If you ask them to go to work for the sake of going to work in the culture and mindset that you and I grew up in, they
mm.
don't have that rationality to go,
No,
well,
I agree.
why am I going to work? You're going to work because life has certain fundamentals, and one of the fundamentals is you breathe, and another one of
Yeah.
them is you earn money. Because all
Hmm.
the time you're breathing, you're burning money. You may not accept it, but I can show you retired people,
Oh, 100%.
mate. You'll just by breathing, you're burning money. I've retired twice and gone
Yeah, yeah.
broke
Oh no, I
twice.
won't. I don't think knowing what and who I am, I don't think it would ever be a case of sell and do nothing.
Right?
I just think that I'm going
How
to
many
give this absolutely
startups do you
everything for
want?
3 years. No, no, it won't be a startup. Assuming this goes the way that I want in over 3 years, I'll just buy a couple of local things to keep my brain busy. That is honestly, I've absolutely got that focus, and I think what you just touched on there is absolutely right. As we speak, Kira I heard the door go. Actually, she's just left to go and do her evening shift in McDonald's. So she works part time in McDonald's,
Brilliant.
part time, obviously, well, a couple 2 or 3 days a week, just to
Just
supplement
to let her know how
herself
the poor
and her
people live.
lifestyle. A little bit, yeah. I think it's important, right? I mean, when I was her age, I was doing anything that earned me a
Yeah,
fiver or a tenner, and I'd go to my granddad's place where he worked, and I'd wash cars. I'd work on members had market stalls down in Hoxton Market. I would go and work on those stalls. I'd work in shops. I worked in a chemist. I did all of those things. I worked on building sites when I was old enough to pretend to be 16. And so I look at that, and that's really important. And Sue is very similar in terms of the work ethic, and that is something we instill in all the kids. And that will never be any different. You can be a sport, you can be brought up in a nice area. The very basics of being a hardworking, decent human being is the very minimum that we expect.
but our kids emulate us.
Yeah, you agree. Yeah,
Look, everything they pick up from us is osmosis. You don't
mm,
realize it, but they have an audio radar, they have a visual radar, and
yeah,
and it doesn't get talked about enough, but they have an energy radar. Because what
hmm,
happens when you're absolutely knackered?
yeah. The
Everything
impact
gets more
is
tense,
100%. Yeah, it does.
and you get more
Not as bad
knackered.
as it gets when not as bad as it gets when Kai's tired.
No, yeah, but you see, the beauty of that is when your energy's up and Kai's is down, you can manage it. But when
Yeah, yeah,
your energy's down and Kai's is down, then you've got blood on the ceiling, because
Oh yeah, I
no one,
agree. Yeah.
and we're the same. Our emotions and our ability. The only reason why I could process last night with my guy's tantrum was because I wasn't dead on my feet. But it
Mm,
and again, this comes back to old man. Sorry, pal, but it is a little bit of old man thinking. I've also changed my modality of work, and I now accept that there are times when I will sit there and I will read, or I'll meditate, or I'll
mm,
sit in that thought process of narrowing down what it is I should be focused on. And I've always got, I swear to God, I've got 9 hours of work every single day just on stuff I'm doing for me, let alone
mm,
work related stuff, or, all that other stuff, just the dad stuff, the home, all the bits and pieces,
mm.
content, all of that is a full time job. And then somewhere in
Yeah,
there, I've got to be earning a living and doing a job under the JOB title.
yeah, yeah,
But what I find more powerful is not to crucify myself, not to go. And you're a case in point. You're very grounded over your two eldest. You don't sit there giving it woe is me. They are
I
who
don't
they
think you
are.
should.
That that
Yeah,
that journey that path has been walked up until
yeah,
now. But you
yeah.
have not.
And all you can do is your best, right? Look, and I
Exactly.
think as long as you can look yourself in the mirror and say, whether I was limited in this or limited in that, I did my best. Whether I had enough of this or I gave them enough of that, as long as you can be true to yourself, and I say to the kids all the time, just as long as you're able to face the man in the mirror, right? Because we all have to do that,
Yeah.
and deal with your shortcomings and deal with your issues and whatever. If you can do that, and you can say, right, I did my best, that's good. That's always going to be good enough for me.
But that's a perfect ethos. If you can, because I say to people, and they never fully it never fully sinks in. But I think it's so important we remind ourselves all the time. At no point have you or I ever woken up in the morning and gone, "How can I make a complete fuckery of today?"
No,
Never
of course,
happened.
yeah,
There's been a few
no,
days when we've pulled it off
yeah, yeah,
brilliantly.
really well, yeah,
Me more than
yeah.
you, I promise. But you've got time. Don't worry, you can catch up.
I
It,
don't know.
it's always a case of you do go into, like you say, you go into each day and you go, right, how can I do the best that I can do? How can I
Mm,
be true to myself? But knowing yourself is part of the problem. That takes a
yeah,
level of wisdom and awareness. Again, if the kids aren't around their dad like they're around you, they're not going to have that level of awareness because they haven't got anything to emulate.
no, true.
You're a very present father. You're very present at work. You're present in the marriage when you're not jet setting around the world being a big cheese,
I
which there'll be less of nowadays, I believe.
hope so.
Well, it'll be more digital now, won't it? It'll be like, oh, I've just sent you a clip.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing stuff. We're doing a lot of stuff on site as well at clubs,
Okay.
around the UK mainly.
I
But
was just going to say, you haven't mentioned anything about international clubs. So keeping it UK? Of
no.
course
So this
not.
has already gone very global, and we'll do 3 events next year: um, London January, Manchester in May, and then all being well back in Amsterdam in September.
I'd be staggered the way your relationship is with Ajax. I'd be heartbroken now if you didn't find a way to dirty their ground at least once a year.
Yeah, it's my favourite place on earth. Everyone knows that. I make no secret of my love of that city, and the fact it's only an hour away is perfect.
Well, they do give you a great welcome as well. So, in all fairness,
They've been
it is
amazing
reciprocal.
for me. Yeah, yeah, they've been incredible. Great team to work with. Great stadium, great facilities. And I just love. Dutch people are just fantastic. They're very straight. They're very honest. Great fun.
They're a rare treat.
Yeah,
They are a rare
they
treat.
are. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They're almost good enough to be Irish. They're not quite there, but they're just they
Almost,
yeah, they
very,
just had a
very
bit
close.
more charm about them, just a little bit more,
Yeah,
or a
yeah,
bit more naughtiness. I think maybe is what they need. But
yeah, possibly.
that's another story. The the Manchester gig, where's that? Dare I ask? Are you able to? Because I might have to sort of segregate us. Balthazar
It'll
was
be,
born
it,
in Manchester.
yeah, it'll be near Trafford.
Oh my word! Well,
It'll be near
that's going
there.
to kill the coverage of this podcast. I'll have to put
yeah.
subtitles up for the non-English speaking.
Yeah. So yeah, January, then May, Manchester, and then September, Amsterdam. Yeah.
See, that's the only bit of rivalry. I know more about that rivalry because his mother was from up there, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and he was born up there. So I know more about that rivalry than I actually do the London rivalries. It,
Ah, okay. Yeah, it
it's
works
only a
like that.
bit of geography. I can manage the Millwall one because I used to live in Rotherhide, so
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
I can get my way around most of that. But yes, that's me. That's me in football covered, ladies and gentlemen. That's my full extent of me in football. A couple of other sports I can go deep on, but no more on football. Mac, if you could have a chat with yourself 22 years ago,
Cool.
is there any three things that the older head would go, mate, whatever you do, pay attention to this, or this?
I'd probably say have a bit more belief in yourself initially. It's taken
Really?
a long. Yeah, I mean, there's a real, and again, I'm very open as an individual
Yeah,
now. I
no,
think
for
that's come a
sure.
bit more as I've got older. I have a huge imposter syndrome complex. Used to suffer with severe anxiety in public arenas and public speaking. When I was younger, I had a stutter, so that used to, you know, put me off speaking publicly. If I would get angry or, anxious, the
That'd bring
stutter
it
would
on.
just get worse and worse. So I put it off and I learned how to control it, and I had to slow everything right down because I still can talk relatively quickly. So I think, yeah, have a bit more belief in yourself, is probably the first one, because had I have done, maybe I'd have achieved a few things a little bit earlier and not wasted, but not achieved too much over a few years in my 20s. Um, we're talking business or personal or both?
Both. I mean, look, you're very self-aware.
Mm,
You're a father to five kids in two different
yeah.
relationships, in two different social environments.
Hmm.
You've gone through some huge
I would
business
have made that. I
changes.
would have made that change earlier, in my personal life.
Okay.
Um,
Because you knew it wasn't
Certainly,
working.
absolutely, and it was completely toxic for the children. And there were addictions, there were, yeah, lots of issues there.
That
So,
negative osmosis. We talked about positive osmosis.
and it
That was an
absolutely has had an impact for sure. So I would have made a change there earlier. Then again, if I'd have done that, maybe I wouldn't have met Sue when I did, and life wouldn't have turned out the way that it has. But I think, just, without thinking about sliding doors or anything like that, I think, yeah, I'd certainly do that. Um, what would be the last one?
So you've done
Mm,
personal development, you've dealt with the stutter,
yep.
you've been self-aware. Is there anything on
Mhm.
your personal development where you think I wish I'd done more of that sooner, or it's been so
Yeah,
powerful?
I think I probably would have learned to have been a bit more measured and a bit more composed when making decisions. I think that was probably the hardest thing to learn, because I was always quite emotive, quite reactionary, and that's never really the best way to do things. So I think, yeah, I probably would have learned to do that a bit sooner. But I think some of that just comes naturally with age as well. You get a bit more composed, and you've got a few more life skills, and and things like that. So, but I think, yeah, I think believe in myself, I would have made those changes in my personal life a little bit sooner than I actually did. Um, and then, yeah, I would have tried to compose myself a little bit earlier, or at least approach things in a bit more of a measured way. And it's strange to think that, because I had a fair amount of senior positions pretty early on. I
I
was
was
the
just going to
youngest.
say, I mean, you would have had to have been a pretty decent negotiator.
Mm,
We both know you were a great closer, but
mm.
negotiation and that composure that comes
Yeah, well, I was the
from
youngest. I think I was the youngest sales manager in contract publishing at 24, which was a very old man's, not old man's, but everybody was 20
they
years
were more
older than me when I
seasoned.
came into it. Yeah, they were. They'd been in advertising for a long time and all of that stuff. So I think, stutter almost came out then. So I think that, that's certainly something that I look back on with a lot of pride. And I was a very young sales director. I was, 26, 27 when I was a sales director looking after 100 people. And I think that's relatively rare. But all of that I always based on just being able to manage different people. And I always had a football ethos when it came to managing people in business, because I never enjoyed being managed as part of a collective. I
Right.
like to be treated as an individual. So I try and treat everybody individually, because what motivates you might not motivate me.
Yeah.
And what gets you out of bed in the morning might make me pull the covers over my head. So I think because everybody's individual, it's really important, as best you can, to treat everybody individually.
But your reflection then isn't entirely fair on you, because well, you talk about, and I know. Look, we've had the conversations, and I know the angst and the reflection that came about from you to even think of leaving Soccerex.
Mm,
So it's fair to say that definitely now you have no composure issues. You take your time and you do examine. But mate,
yeah,
if you were doing all that in your mid-20s and not blowing up, and you had 100 people, and that was at a time when it was hard to keep people, because
mm,
the world was busy, it was ballooning, and
yeah,
there was always greener grass being grown and sown by
yeah,
someone, and particularly
100%.
in that environment, because every new thing that turned up was shinier, better.
Yeah,
Oh, we're going to go, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the mobility of the sales force in that industry, that was bonkers.
It was. Yeah, it's funny actually, because I think I mentioned it before. I would say in the middle of writing a book. That'd be an exaggeration. I've not picked it up in ages, but
Be
it's
a
a
comic,
loose
wouldn't it?
story. I'm into chapter 8 now, I think it is, but I'm just too busy. I'm speaking to a couple of potential ghostwriters to get it done, but it's loosely based on the advertising world, and there is a lot of that kind of incestuous move around of people. There were, 10 or 11 major publishers in London, and I make a reference in the book of, it wasn't unusual for people to quit their jobs on a Monday, have Tuesday off, pick up the Evening Standard on a Wednesday for the media jobs, and then be back at work on Thursday somewhere
Yeah,
else. That was completely normal.
yeah. It was
And I
expected.
don't think it was expected. Yeah, you have an argument with your sales director on Friday, you have a meeting on the Monday, you quit Monday afternoon, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
work for his competitor
Monday
on
night on the
Thursday.
piss, possibly
Exactly,
Tuesday. Hangover,
exactly,
hangover phone calls on Wednesday, and then back to earning money.
absolutely spot on.
Knowing you weren't getting the last bonus and the last paycheck from the last job.
Exactly that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, kids, you got it soft these days. You've got it so soft.
It was it
HR,
was tough.
HR were just letters that had dropped out of the alphabet and weren't in order.
Yeah, yeah. That I don't think I'd met anybody in HR until I
No.
was nearly 30 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, when I went to work for Reuters, I went to work for Reuters at 20. How old was I then? Actually, maybe 30. Yeah. Yeah, that was the first time I dealt with like the HR side of things.
But that amuses me because Reuters is American, Canadian, if
Hmm.
I'm not wildly mistaken. I might be wrong. But anyway, American. Call it American for a minute,
Hmm.
which is amusing because their actual employee relationship protocols and the laws are
Hmm.
the least favorable or progressive for the employee.
Well, I actually worked for a UK business called Action Images, which was then acquired by Reuters.
Okay.
So
So you had
we
a degree
stayed
of
in London.
protection.
Yeah, and we stayed in London, and I just reported into New York. But yeah, we were based in Aldgate East under a brilliant guy called Alan Whiter, who is still around. He's a director at 12th Man now.
Okay.
Another very very real individual. He's from Tottenham. Says it how it is. Decent footballer as well, but just a great fella. He really looked after me, and I'll always appreciate that. And we stay in touch from time to time, which is quite nice.
Nice. I'm sure we'll see him somewhere on FBB.
Yeah, well, we've asked already. We've got
Shocker.
access to a lot of UEFA people, so
Another excuse to get to Europe.
yeah, exactly.
Mac, if there's anything else you want to cover, please feel free. If there's ways of getting hold of Football Black Book, or what people should be plugging into YouTube, whatever you'd like them to do, please share it now. And also, I'll put it into the notes when this goes live.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think if you're a football fan or a fan of the business of the game, or work within the industry, footballbusinesstv.com is the website, and Football Business Television is the handle on YouTube and Instagram. Funnily enough, so you can catch it there. For the event stuff and the consultancy stuff we do is footballblackbook.com. and you can find out all about the business end, which is the events business that's under that umbrella, organising the events that are pertinent to the world of football.
Excellent. Unsurprisingly, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you
As
very
always.
much.
No, not at all.
I hope that we will see a lot more of you, and don't be shocked if we drag you back a few more episodes in when you're a bit deeper into your football black book journey.
Yeah, let's do it. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Have a great one. Thank you so much.
Cheers, mate.
Be good.
Take care.
Bye now.